Hi, so this tutorial briefly covers the tools and processes for using properly instanced props in Titanfall maps, or from Titanfall maps in Unity. I won't go over any of the details for how to actually rip the maps themselves. I'm just gonna assume you already know all that stuff by watching this. Um, but first off, I should explain what is an instance and why is it important. Uh, so an instance is basically just a duplicate of an object or a mesh. So Blender actually, when you import the props, into Blender, it's already like this. So see this like tree here is just a duplicate of an original mesh. None of these are the actual meshes. They're just collections. Uh, but whenever you export to Unity, none of this data gets carried over, and they all get exported as their own unique meshes. So this tree, that tree, whatever, all this grass, they're all different meshes in Unity, while basically being completely identical, and that has really obvious performance and file size ramifications that realistically should not be an issue, had they been properly exported. A prime example of this is actually my Angel City port I did a while back. It looks really pretty, but none of the stuff is properly instanced. Uh, and what I had done to sort of get around the file size part of that was to combine all the different meshes that were identical. And that honestly caused more issues because then that meant that the occlusion culling was god awful on the map. And this port does have a lot of its own issues. It has like two separate texture folders and whatever. It's no good. But this issue does apply to I think every map port I've seen on VRChat. No one really has properly instanced props. And even if you aren't going after the performance benefits of instancing, uh, just doing so will actually improve your performance in editor quite a bit. So it's honestly just something you should do no matter what. It's just a good thing, you know? uh, so what do you do? Uh, you just homestead, which is what I'll be using as an example. I've recently updated my toolset, my VRChat tools for Unity, to include a new thing that can basically take. I just closed it actually. I can take a CSV or a data file as an input and a folder path that contains all the prop models individually. And with those two inputs, it can import all of the props. So here you see I've got all the props of Homestead in Unity. But if I were to click on them, they're all models which derive from just a folder of models. So while there is like, let's see, a couple thousand. Yeah, while there's 16,000 prop instances, there are only... Oh, I shouldn't have done Control A. Oh no. Whatever. There are only like 300 prop models that it uses, so it's very good for performance and file size and all that fun stuff. So yeah, I'll quickly show you how to work this into your existing map porting workflow. As I said, I'm going to assume you already know how to do all this up into the instancing point. So yeah, you're going to want to rip the map as you normally would and get the MPRT and all the cast meshes and all that fun stuff. So you've got all that in this models folder. And here's my MPRT. But before you import it into Blender like you normally would, you're going to want to use a template that I provide in this non-Unity folder on the GitHub page. if you go here, there's a blend file for the data export or whatever. Download that and then import your map into that blend file, or you could just steal the script from it and put that into your own project. So I'm gonna just quickly open up the template, and this is what it should look like. It's just a regular project file, but you've got all this fun shazazz on the right. So I'm actually gonna quickly import all the homestead props into this sort of project. I don't know if there's many other options out there, but I use the Apex Map Importer add-on for getting my props into Blender. This tool probably won't work if you use a different method, so just keep that in mind. You might want to swap to this if you are on a different tool or whatever. Okay, so now that all my props have finished importing, I'm actually going to quickly show you on the right. There are two collections that came with them. One called Map and one called Assets. The Map collection actually just contains all the instances. So these are all just duplicates. As you see, they're empty. They don't contain anything in them. That's because they reference this other collection, which is hidden by default, called Assets. And this just contains the original models, which then get duplicated everywhere, which is why they're all like at the origin overlapping each other and looking ugly. Let's actually first go and export the prop data. So that's where this template actually comes in handy. You may notice at the top, this is the export path, and this is highlighted by default because you might want to change it. By default, I have it set to my D drive because the C drive has some like permission issues. If you try to export it there, it might require admin or whatever. And you can rename it or change it to something else. So if you want it to go on to a G drive or whatever drive, you just edit this up here. But I'll keep it at D. You can also rename it. So by default, it has it named as instance data in all caps. But you can change that. Just make sure not to rename the CSV extension at the end. That's important for the Unity tool to work properly. But yeah, the second thing you have to do to export, you have to do two things, is in this map collection with all the instances, select all the things you want to export. You don't actually have to export the entire map at once if you don't want to. So if you just want to get the stuff from right there, you can do that. But I'm just going to get everything. And make sure you only have the instances selected. I don't know. Yeah. And then at the top here, there will be a little arrow button next to the name here and an X. Press that and it'll run the script. If everything went nicely and you don't see any errors down in this console, look in your file explorer for where you put it, and you should have this beautiful instance data CSV, which is exactly what we need. Now let's get the models themselves. Like I said before, they're in the assets collection, so let's just quickly show that. But in order to export them all as individual models, we're going to need a separate add-on. I use this one that's called Super Batch Export or whatever. It's actually worked really well in the time I've used it, so I'm going to link it in the description and, you know, just show you how to set it up. Make sure only the props you want are shown. Select all the collections. Then up here at the help button, click on this arrow because we're going to configure it first. The top text box, just set it to where you want to export to. You're going to want to set the format to FBX and the mode to collections and limit it to only selected. Visible would probably honestly work, but whatever. And everything else should be set up right, so you can just press that button and they'll all export as individual FBX files. Cool. So now that we have our instance data and all of our prop models, let's go back to Unity and quickly import both of those. I already have my my instances here, so I'm not gonna rip those again, but you know, just gonna hide the old ones. But yeah, here's my instance data file at least, that's new. Make sure all your instances are in a folder that only these instances are in, right? You're probably going to want to do that anyways for organization reasons, but the tool kind of expects that, so don't break shit. Open up the tool, you probably already did that under maps prop instancer. So select the instance data file you just imported and press this handy dandy button and it'll set the path for you. Now find that models folder with all the instances, select it, just the folder, and do that same thing again. Now this bottom text box actually is pretty important. This is the suffix, so the file extension and any words that would show up at the end of the model names. So mine actually do have a suffix. All of mine have LOD0 at the end, underscore LOD0. So let me quickly add that. You can also use this, like I said, you can change the extension to be like OBJ or even like prefab. So you can have all of your props as prefabs you'd have to set up yourself if you hate life, you know? But, just FBX, since that's what we set it up as. And this text, or checkbox, this enables the fast exporter. So what happens whenever you export by default is they all come packed as their proper models. Like if I were to drag an instance into the scene, it's going to be like this blue model thing. And so if you make any edits to the model here, it'll automatically affect all the instances, which is really handy for development, but that also slows down the import time a little bit. So if you're in a rush, if it's taking forever, if you're just quickly testing stuff, you might want to swap to fast importer, which does the same thing as the slow importer, I guess, but it just shoves everything into the scene as their raw meshes already unpacked, which kind of sucks, but whatever. So yeah, I'm gonna have it as fast importer, just so I don't go brain dead while recording this. So yeah, fun little progress bar. It shows all the objects and current object it's on. You can cancel it if you want, but don't do that. Unless it's like frozen, I don't know. But yeah, you can see fast importer doesn't take long at all, even though this is literally the entire map of Homestead, which is mostly just mesh grass. Gotta love mesh grass. Right, so now that it's done, you'll quickly notice one major thing. It's put them all under one transform, so they're not just dumped into your project, and yeah, it's actually organized. But I do have it scaled to 0.025, which is my scaling model. If you use a different value for your ports, you're going to want to change that here, and that'll just scale it properly, you know? But another thing, this message at the bottom will tell you extra detail about how the import process went. Skips is basically it couldn't find the model or encountered an error. So I've actually got 5 skips here, which is no good. If you click on the message, it'll give you a list of everything that went wrong. So yeah, it couldn't find 4 models. It told me the name of the models it couldn't find. And this last one, I'm pretty sure this is just an error with my tool, actually. It'll always have incomplete data at the end of the file. That's just... don't worry about it. It's fine. There was no prop that was actually there. And in this list of everything, here you can see it's all unpacked, right? So it's all trash garbage. But everything is instanced correctly and cool and placed and awesome. Yay. What was I saying? So if you actually look through this list, if you have a bunch of skips, it'll actually still add that object just as an empty. So you can actually see where specifically in the process it came across that skip. And you can also just quickly scroll through and see how much of your stuff was lost. Which, I don't know, it's kind of handy. And it gives you the specific object data, ID, whatever. Which probably means literally nothing to you, but if you're crazy, yeah. But yeah, now you have instance props. Your game will run a little faster, your editor will run a little faster, your map port will be a little lower in file size. Everyone's happy. Yay.
Bye.